Hola, amigos. Welcome to a Celtic State of Mind on a Monday, and you're joined by me, Kevin Graham, and Azim. Azim, how are you this morning?
Brilliant. I'm in quite the good mood. Hola amigos as well to all the viewers. I'm sure a lot of the viewers will be in just as buoyant a mood as us. Some maybe less so, but yeah, plenty of reason to be cheerful. Not just because of last night, but it seems like things are slightly hotting up as well with regards to Celtic. So plenty to talk about today.
Definitely. A couple of wee comments keep coming this morning. The Jeter, happy Monday to all my fellow Acsom Celts. It is a happy Monday. It is a real happy Monday. Things are picking up. And Paddy Laverty comes in. Are we left with the poor man's Paul John Dykes today, aka Chris? No. You're left
Savage.
with somebody even worse, Paddy. And it's me. You're left with somebody. No, let's get the Euros all the way. And I've got a wee message to Paul Gascoigne, Nigel Spackman, Terry Hurlock, Chris Woods, Trevor Stevens, Gary Stevens, Terry Butcher, Graham Roberts, Todd Cantwell, and Ali McCoist. Your boys took a hell of a beating, lads. Football won last night. I seen football won,
You forgot Paul Merson in there as well. I'm pretty sure he was the most confident at the beginning of the Euros. But it's to be honest, wasn't the best of games. I thought, especially the first half. But the Spanish were from start to finish in terms of the tournament by far and away the best team to watch. The most attacking team, deserved winners. I thought on the night as well. And it's just fitting, obviously, for the Euros that the team that was the most attacking, enjoyable to watch, and gave us the most in terms of entertainment, deservedly won. So against a team that, let's be honest, we're very lucky to even get to that final. But yeah, I thought the right outcome, and it was great. It was such a late goal as well, just given how it's gone the other way for a lot of the games in the Euros. But I thoroughly enjoyed the second half yesterday, and more so the aftermath.
The second half was the first half was dreadful. A not only dreadful game of football in the first half. The second half, I think the early goal helped it. England have got enough quality, and we're going to need to put up with this more and more often because they've got such a good squad that them going deep into tournaments is going to be a regular occurrence over the next 3 or 4 tournaments. The only worry is they might get a decent manager who might work out what's better to actually do with the
Aye.
calibre of player that they've got.
Well, I was
Um,
having that chat with a few of my mates. You know, you're right. The group of players they've got quality, and that's why they managed to get to these finals. Because even if they're not playing well, they've got some really really world class players in there that can win them a game out of nothing, as they've done in this tournament. But that's about 3 tournaments in a row. They've been really fortunate with the draw in terms of the teams they play. And it's for as long as I can remember since growing up, it seems that any time they come up against a really good outfit, it's when they end up losing. If they'd played a team like Spain or Germany, I think earlier in this tournament, I don't think they'd have got to the final. Likewise, in the last Euros, when they got to the final, and a lot of those games were played on home turf. But look, there's no denying it. We're not here to sit and absolutely slate them. They've got a decent group of players, and you're right. They're making semi-finals and finals more regularly. So I do worry though that they may have missed their best opportunity with these last couple of tournaments because of how kind the draw's been. And Gareth Southgate is, I don't think he is the best manager to get the best out of that group of players. And the likes of Spain, you look at that last night, that's not even, they weren't even one of the favourites to win this tournament. And it's quite a young side, so you can only see them improving. You can only see the likes of the French improving when Didier Deschamps leaves, I think, because I don't think he's got the best out of that group of players, despite it's strange to say they've won a World Cup and got to the final. But I just think squad-wise, they've got an enormous array of talent, but don't seem to play to their potential. So, I think there's a few up and coming nations, but I really enjoyed watching Spain. I really enjoyed watching them. That youthful exuberance, the two wingers, Lamal and Williams, pick of the bunch, and then they're sprinkled with talent throughout the team. So I'm really glad they won. I enjoyed them from the first day, and look at the teams they played to get to that final.
Definitely,
Uh,
yeah.
you know,
That's a run, eh? That is a
aye,
is a tough run that they've had to actually get there. I watched them against Northern Ireland, Spain, and I went, oh, they look like a side. But like you, I had a wee bit of a doubt about the youngness of the side
aye.
and when they come up against like your Frances and the French and the Germans and stuff like that. And even last night when they went 1-0 up, I was like that. England are going to have a 10-15 minute spell. They just can't have a 10-15 minute spell. And that's what actually happened. And they scored a peachy goal. It was a really good goal. But then the Spanish took control again and did actually control. Did actually control the game for the final whistle. And I get what you're saying about the England draw, And as I says to somebody messaged me after the Bellingham overhead kick against Slovakia, and they went, the jammy so-and-sos. I went, they're not jammy. I went, we've just got to admit that it's no Darius Vassell trying to do that overhead kick. It's a generational talent that's doing that overhead kick. And they've got Foden in that boat as well, I did think it was quite funny, them bringing on Ollie Watkins and Ivan Toney, and I was listening to the BBC, and Alan Shearer trying to tell us that the Spanish defence are going to be absolutely fearful to Ollie Watkins. I found that quite funny. I'm going, it's Ollie Watkins. They're probably Googling who he is, Alan. Who's this guy that they're bringing on?
I think, obviously in terms of the style, it just meant that they can try and get in behind a bit more. But you're right. I think you look beyond Harry Kane, who's obviously been a great striker for them, but he looks pretty much past his best now. And then beyond that, you've got a crop of strikers who aren't quite at that level of world class. But you've got 3 or 4 players behind them, like Bellingham, Saka, Foden, Palmer, even, who are very, very good. And you sometimes just wonder if this manager that they've got hasn't been able to get the best out of them. But there's a few factors in there. There's a mentality thing, as well. It just seems like England throughout my football supporting lifetime, they've always just struggled with that mentality to get over the line. And that's, we're all the better for it. I don't know if you've seen, there was a lot of clips last night on Twitter of the last Euros where a reporter asked a certain Kasper Schmeichel, is it coming home in the semi-final? And I just thought his response, I remember at the time, and it's obviously even more relevant now, which we'll probably go on to shortly, but it just spoke of the kind of arrogance and entitlement that a lot of the media and the fans seem to have, more so than the actual current. Well, what I said was the current group of players. I think that's even feeding into some of them now. But, I think that's what gets in a lot of our nerves, is that kind of entitlement and arrogance, isn't it? So I thought that was really funny, just watching Kasper Schmeichel's response to that. And
as the arrogance and entitlement. And I mean, we can argue all day, but it's no coming home because Scotland invented football. So they've actually, that's all made up. That was Ian Brodie just fitted that into a lyric because it sounded catchy. The Scots actually invented football. And today we can be kind of arrogant because Spain won 16 out of 17 games. Who was the only team to beat Spain? It was Scotland. So we are the unofficial European champions. So I think we'll take that. Before we'll start talking about Celtic now, I like that, Kenny Todd. You done that quite quick, Your wee avatar there, You and the missus, all dressed up Spanishly. That's
they don't miss a trick.
They didn't know. They're very, very quick on the go, these lads.
Possible,
Double denim is tell Paddy Laverty that he's going to remember that remark that I mentioned earlier on. The urban culture. I think I says that right. Late again, must do better. As you can actually tell, I've moved to my dad's because the Waynes are off school, and I think they were using my Wi-Fi bandwidth on Friday. That's why my picture was terrible. My dad doesn't actually ken I'm here. He's away for a pint, so you might hear him shouting when he comes in when he answers some of the news. Let's talk about Kasper Schmeichel. Me, Alan, and Lloyd were quite hard on the board on Friday, saying that they were useless, that Woody and Buzz Lightyear for Toy Story could do better with them. 4 hours later, we get the news through that Kasper Schmeichel's turning up for a medical, and the medical's probably going to be tomorrow, and everything's been signed and sealed, and he will be going to the States. Now, right away, the optics I looked through this was, right, he's 37. It's obviously another stopgap because of the age of the goalie. Even though goalies can go into their 38, 39, 40. The thing is, it's a 1 year deal where I've seen it reported with an option for a further year. But so right away, I started thinking, old cynical me, I started thinking right away, they've missed out on their number one target. And this was a backup option, who is an extremely good backup option, by the way. I am not going to decry this boy's ability. He was very, very, very good in the Euros there. He looks sprightly. He looks really, really good for a goalkeeper, and replaces Joe Hart in the leadership sense in the dressing room as well. He's got that presence and stature about him. But I was cynical. They've missed out on the number one target, And what I say is right away, what they now need to do to prove that they're thinking for the future is bring in another goalie to be the de facto number two, to step up in the year or two after Schmeichel goes away. So half an hour before we come on, we're linked with Aston Villa Finnish goalkeeper Viljami Sinisalo. And it looks like that's nearly a done deal as well. What's going on? We'll wait on a goalkeeper or someone to come at once.
You're right. The timing of it, because I've been saying all week, in the past coming weeks, that I've not been panicking yet. But as soon as it gets into pre-season, as soon as we're on the way to the States, I'd like to have seen some movement and some players in, particularly with the goalkeeper. As for Schmeichel, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I think there's two ways to look at it, and they're both equally relevant. On one hand, you are looking at, we've got Joe Hart, who's just finished up at 37, and he's decided, he's hanging up the gloves, and then we're bringing in someone at 37, and you're just like, age, is that going to be a potential issue? I know we spoke about keepers can go on obviously a lot longer, but it's still, he's in towards the end of his career. So it is another short stopgap kind of signing. Is it lazy? You then wonder, is it just, another kind of lazy one where, you're right, where's the kind of broad, extensive recruitment? Why is it taking so long just to get Kasper Schmeichel? But then on the flip side, if you just look at it on the signing individually on its own merits, then I think it's a good signing because, number one, you're instantly replacing that kind of stature and leadership, as you said, that Joe Hart is leaving us with. Kasper Schmeichel, he seems like he's cut from that same kind of cloth. He's a winner. He's already won a league. He's won FA Cup. He's a Danish international, and as recently as 2 weeks ago was shining against Germany. Had a really good game. So he's clearly still got it. He can still play. As you said, he's got that wealth of experience and that leadership that might have been needing replaced when Joe Hart's gone. And I think he can do more than a good job. He's still been playing at a decent level. He's playing for Belgium, playing for Anderlecht in Belgium last year, Nice in France the year before. So he's by no means kind of just finishing up and just looking for an easy payday. I think he's going to come. Obviously, he'll have spoke to Joe Hart as well, who have no doubt sold him the club, and I don't think Kasper would need to be sold. He's played in Scotland before when he was at Falkirk. He knows the size of the club. So in isolation, I think it's a good signing. And you're right. I think if it was Kasper on his own, we'd have probably still been looking, well, where's the forward thinking though? Whilst this might be a good short stopgap signing, where's the forward thinking of trying to get in a younger goalkeeper who we can, when Kasper goes, ease into the first team? And then you're right, about an hour ago or even less so, we get the news of this Finnish goalkeeper who again is an international. I think I've seen he played at Ayr on loan as well a couple of years back. And Exeter last season. So obviously people say he's not played at a high level, but he's getting games, and that's the most important thing. He's obviously not coming in to be our number one. We've had a backup in Siegrist who's literally done nothing, and Scott Bain, who we all know we don't really want as our number two backup. So I think it makes sense if you get the two of these guys in, then that's more like it. That's more like what we're talking about. An experienced head, a really capable goalkeeper to come in and give us that presence, and then you've got someone else who, I don't know much about him. I'd be lying if I did. But he's got a bit of pedigree. He seems rated, and if we can try and get him some game time and get him learning behind the scenes and someone that can come in when Kasper goes, then by all accounts, that's the kind of forward thinking that we're looking for from Celtic. So it's a start.
We kind of thought that we were getting that with Siegrist. That was the thing that we kind of thought we were getting with Siegrist, and obviously that didn't work out. As I says to Alan on Friday, goalies are a strange breed. And even though you've got a goalkeeper who's not playing, it doesn't mean he's bad. It's just the nature of the position that they are in. And the fact that he's went to League One is no saying him either, because he's went there and he's got games and stuff like that. Goalies are strange. They're not like other positions. They go, like, if you're playing outfield, then you're not as good at a certain level. Goalies are strange.
Yeah.
I think the number of games that we're going to play this season, and maybe Schmeichel's age. Schmeichel looks fit as a butcher's dog.
Aye.
He does. But it could be a case that Sinisalo comes in as the cup goalie.
Yes.
If we're looking at, especially the League Cup goalie, he could come in and get minutes there. It's obviously, if the boy's turning up to us, he's obviously been sold on. He's been told there's some sort of pathway, because he would have knew the sale that we've just actually signed Kasper Schmeichel. He knows full well that Kasper Schmeichel is going to be the number one goalie. So obviously he knows himself. He maybe sees there's a better pathway for him at Celtic to become a first team goalkeeper in the next couple of years. Because, I mean, I don't know if you agree, but outfield players seem to say they hit their peak between 27, 28. Goalies seem later to their 30s before they seem to be at their peak. So we must have sold this laddie a pathway to the first team. We've got to have done.
Aye, because you're right. Otherwise, nobody wants to come in and just know that that's the ceiling they're going to be back up in. I think, we've obviously got the likes of Scott Bain, who's been happy to be that. I think he knew quite early on. You see that he's never going to kind of be that first choice. We've had 2 or 3 managers now that I've never seen him as first choice. But regardless, if you're a footballer, whether it's goalkeeper, you've always got to have ambition. You're going to have ambition that you can be good enough to take that spot. Now, he'll obviously know that he's coming in as backup to Schmeichel, but he'll feel that, okay, I can really try and impress behind the scenes. I can try and get some cup games, and he'll be aware of Schmeichel's age, that there'll become a point where maybe even next season that we're looking for a goalkeeper again. And if this guy's able to impress, I don't know if you got his age. Do you know what age he is?
22.
22, so obviously very young. And as you said, goalkeepers tend to improve with age, with experience, with maturity. So, we don't know if we're going to be in this situation again next season where we're looking for that first choice again, because he is still quite young. Whether I do think we needed 2 goalkeepers. That's the thing. With Seagrass going, with Bain, everyone kind of not really being comfortable with him being that second choice, then I think it's a wise move. We'll see how he gets on. But at least for me, I'm comforted in the fact that it wasn't just Kasper Schmeichel. I think on the back of hearing about Schmeichel, I was happy enough with that, but I thought, we need another goalkeeper in as well. And this guy seems to fit the mould, where someone who's going to be happy to kind of learn from someone like Kasper, play in the background, as you say, maybe get some cup football, and then when his chance to shine comes, hopefully he'll be able to take it.
And it's on Friday. We have to look at the optics on Friday, and even when I was thinking about what we're going to speak about this morning, the Kasper Schmeichel situation was, I'm going, we still need to bring in another one. This is a stopgap. It's another year. We've just basically landed ourselves in another Joe Hart situation, who had a year left in his contract, and we haven't got a backup. So the optics the way that we're going to speak about this has changed in the last half hour.
100%.
Since this has came on. And it was one thing, we spoke about it on the group chat, about the Kasper Schmeichel stuff, and how it was sort of lukewarmly perceived by the Celtic support on Friday night. No, it's no Schmeichel it was lukewarmly perceived. It was how we've ended up with Kasper Schmeichel this far into the window. And somebody put it in the window, what happens if Kasper Schmeichel was the 5th signing of this window, right? The first 2 were, for example, I'm just going to band out the first 2 were Ida and Bernardo. They were done extremely quickly in this window. Then, for example, you bring in McKenna and Tierney. Then Kasper Schmeichel was the 5th one. We would, as a support, would be over the moon at our business at this point. But the lukewarm reaction to Schmeichel hasn't been because of the player. It's been because he was the first signing. But again, that's changed in the last half hour.
Yeah, you're right. Optics is a big thing, and I think we've been stung too often before, Kev. I think that's the thing as well. A lot of us fans are still kind of we've got scarred from last summer, and we're scarred from previous windows where we just know how Celtic have worked before. So us having not done anything up until mid-July was starting to become a worry. As you said, the Bernardo and Ida, we'd have all wanted that to be done soon. We know how quickly we managed to get Jota and Carter Vickers 2 years ago when it was similar kind of deals. The goalkeeper situation, Joe Hart announced it back in February. So again, we all just thought that we'd have really had all our ducks in a row and made sure that a goalkeeper was priority and done quite quickly. You add to the fact, again, just like I say, the age and things like that. You're right, it was a lukewarm response. And as you said, it's not about the individual. It's more about the processes. It's more about, does this give us a great confidence going forward as to how Celtic are going about their business again this summer? Is there any kind of strategy there? But then you're right, things this morning, the news this morning about that. There's another link I seen as well, just again, probably even just about 15 minutes before we came on, about a winger in Belgium, which we might go on to discuss as well. But it's the optics, and I think, you mentioned those 5 players. That had we signed those, everyone will have their own opinions whether those were the right kind of players, McKenna, Tierney, whatever. But I think if we'd been a lot more proactive by now, had a few more guys ready to come on this trip to America with us, we'd all be feeling a lot better. But it seems like today, Euros have finished. A lot of people have been saying maybe that's been a factor, but things seem to be heating up a wee bit. We've had a couple more links with players, so
the whole transfer market's now heating up. You actually see it worldwide. There's more deals starting getting done now. Things are beginning to get moved. I mentioned Scott McKenna there. I still think Scott McKenna will be a Celtic player towards the end of the window when he realises nobody's going to pay him the wages that he's wanting. I've still got a wee sneaking suspicion.
Is it someone you'd be happy with?
A left-sided centre half. Well, is he better than what we've got? Probably. He is probably better than what we've got. I think there's a bit of a cloud over him because he played with Aberdeen. Then Steve Clarke decided to play him as a left wing back against Hungary, and he's not a left wing back, even though he gave it a good go. I think there's a bit of cloud over that. But the way I look at it is Brendan Rodgers has loved him since he's been at Aberdeen and knew he's available on a free transfer. Seemingly the problem is the wages that he's wanting are absolutely astronomical. That's scared off Copenhagen. And the only clubs that could probably afford to pay the wages that are looking for the bottom half English Premiership clubs. But I think if we get into mid-August and he still hasn't got a club, I reckon that could work out for us if Rodgers still wants him at that point, if we're still looking for a centre-half at that point.
Yeah, I think he's clearly someone that Rodgers likes. I think the wages will continue to be an issue unless he does back down on that somewhat, because for him to come in and be maybe one of our biggest earners, I don't know if we can justify that for McKenna. I think he's better than what we've got if you're comparing him to the likes of Scales, and ultimately we're looking for a centre-back partner for Carter Vickers. Do I think he's going to take us to that next level? Again, we can all speculate at this point. I didn't think Joe Hart was going to be a great signing for Celtic at the time. You can actually draw parallels with Schmeichel in terms of Joe Hart. I think a lot of people probably have those kind of similar views and at the time of Joe Hart, and look how great he turned out. So with McKenna, I think as a backup potentially, but I don't think he's good enough on the ball. And I think a lot of our problems last season, not a lot, some of our problems, because there was so many of them, but was that we didn't have that ball playing centre half that can really speed up the play from the back. And I don't think McKenna's, again, great on the ball. I think he's a great last ditch defender, someone that can head the ball clear when you're under the cosh. He's good at that, and that's why he excelled at Aberdeen, did well at Nottingham Forest. But when you're a team that's got the ball a lot on the front foot, I don't know if he's got that profile of what I'd be looking for and what maybe Rodgers would be looking for. But as you said, Rodgers does like him, so maybe he's got a different plan for him. But he's someone that will improve us. I just think there maybe are better options out there.
There probably is better. There's probably better options and cheaper options out there. But then we do have the caveat that we do play in Scotland, and there's just something that we've been linked with him too often. There's just something in my water that I reckon he'll be a duck in a boat. Wales at one point. I think he's still a name on the owner table. I think Rodgers is probably tell his agent, "Our phone's always on. You can give us a phone back at any point, and we're not going to ignore the phone call. Thomas Burns comes in. Surely we can do better than McKenna, even if he's on a free. I think it could be quite difficult. Everybody wants ball carrying centre halves, and McKenna. I agree with what Acsom saying. There's probably better out there, but it's trying to get him to come to Scotland. I reckon could be a bit of a problem. But
one thing that seems clear right now is that the people that we're linked with, or you look at Schmeichel, whether it's McKenna, obviously Ida and Bernardo, it seems like Brendan Rodgers has got much more of a stranglehold on players that he wants now, and it seems like it's not just random names that are being thrown at him. It seems like he's got a few players that he really wants and trusts. Like so obviously Schmeichel. It's clear that we want Ida. I think I wonder if being sold now to Genk is going to really escalate that one, because we've got a reputation of doing that in the past. It's usually when one player goes out and then suddenly you see someone coming in. I remember a few years ago when like Ayer left and came Starfelt, another player left and came someone in that similar position. So I wonder if that's now going to escalate the O deal. But it looks like Rodgers is being patient because he's wanting to make sure what happened last season doesn't, and he's wanting to make sure it's players that he wants and that he's comfortable with. Whether that's a good thing or not remains to be seen. People can argue about Rodgers' own attributes when it comes to the transfer market.
What you can actually say there is true, because we haven't got a recruitment team.
Yeah.
So this is Rodgers working with players that he knows and agents that he knows.
Well, that's a problem in itself, isn't it? That we've not got that recruitment team.
But that's where we are in this window. I mean, we've argued to be long in the tooth that we need a European structure, we need a modern structure, and we can argue about that. We've argued about it this close season already, and we can argue about it in the future again. But the bottom line is, for us to improve it as a football team at this precise moment in time, what we're working with is Rodgers with players that he knows and agents that we know. And that's where we are, and we really need to hope that we can get it right. And this is where I think McKenna will still be a goer, because we are in that situation. That's it. Well, you mentioned Doe there. He went to Ghent. Seems like we've got our money back for him. The big fella, he was a big unit. He was a unit. He was a bit powerful. The writing was on his wall as soon as Ida came in. It was quite clear that Rodgers didn't quite fancy him. Alan Morrison will do a decent argument with you that he actually contributed the same as what Ida done stats wise. He's all scored 12 goals for us, and he was a goal every 110 minutes. But me and you know, Azim, the romance of Celtic is we love players that appear in big moments. Ida had the moments that didn't he? And that, so Alan Morrison, sorry Alan, you can fire your stats at me all you want, but the reason that we think Ida's a better player is because he stood up in those big moments that we actually remember. That's not to say that O's not a bad player, but I think we've got a decent deal there for a player that was obviously going to be on the fringes, the hungry fringes of the Celtic first team squad. So much so that we offered Rocco Vata his place, more than likely.
Aye, well, that was a surprising line when I heard it. I wasn't too enthused by that one. But in terms of I think by seemingly we've made a profit on him. There's a bit of disparity about exactly how much, ranging between 2.5 to 4 million. But if it is about 4 million, then I think that's pretty good business for a guy who, to be honest, I didn't think he was that bad. I was quite a fan of him at first in terms of I thought he's got something there. He came in to replace Giakoumakis, which was a hard one to replace because Giakoumakis, really, really gave Kyogo a run for his money in terms of they both split the game time, both played big games for us. There was points in the season where people would argue Giakoumakis should be starting, and it was really kind of nip and tuck. Obviously, Kyogo was our main man, and that's essentially why Giakoumakis left, because he wanted to be the main man. But that's how good Giakoumakis was doing, that he was making it an argument. And I think the problem for was he never really made that statement. He never really took his chance. I think there was in the early part, I thought he always did okay when he came on. And then when it got to the point where he actually got a start, he just didn't seem to deliver. And I think that's the problem. And that's the difference between what Ida managed to do in his 4 or 5 months here. He managed to really have some big moments, as you said, big games, get us winning goals, get us crucial goals in the derby fixtures, just made himself an absolute nuisance. I remember at Rugby Park, people questioned it, oh, Ida's starting, and said that, oh, and my God, it was one of the best individual performances you'll see all season from a Celtic player. So that's where Ida made the difference. He came in as a kind of young, real talent from South Korea, first time playing in Europe, and everyone had high hopes. I'd still think he could go on to be a decent player, and I don't think he was a bad player for us. He had a couple of moments. I remember his goal against Hibs last season, Ange's second season, which was an important goal to give us a 2-1 win, and also a goal last season against St Mirren. So he had a couple of good moments. I thought his attitude was always good. I don't think you can ever question his attitude. No. I think he gave his all. He looked really hungry. Looked like a good guy in the dressing room as well. He seemed quite popular. So I don't have any issues with him. I hope he goes on to do well. I just think when Ida came in, you seen the difference of what we all wanted O to be, and he just didn't really do that. I remember the game at Rugby Park, the one that we lost 2-1. I think Kyogo hadn't been playing well. O got his chance to start and just didn't do it. And I think there was a couple of instances like that where Kyogo wasn't having his best season, so it was a chance for someone to come in and really stake their claim, and he just didn't manage to do that. But I think he's still a decent player, and I think if we made good money on him, I think it's a move that's good for all concerned. I think O can go on and do well in Belgium. I think Genk have got themselves a decent potential striker, but for us, we've got good money if we tried it. But I think we've seen when the likes of Ida, that's the kind of backup option that we're looking for, someone that can actually come in and maybe not be a backup.
Or first choice option. It might be who actually knows. Joseph McGonigal, a rizzler between O and Ida. I think we've covered that, Joseph, that Ida stood up in the big moments for us, and I think that's why we hang our hats more on him. Raja, O didn't play enough minutes to get a fix on his true level. Probably true as it is hard for players to come in at times when there's 10 minutes left in a game. 20 minutes left in a game to get into the speed of the game. I actually do kind of agree with that. Harry, he's 10 minutes behind here in Finlay. Harry, if you're 10 minutes behind, come in 10 minutes time and tell us about the goalkeeper for Aston Villa. Is he any good? Just leave that in the comments and we'll end with that. Joseph McGonigal comes back in again. He says Stephen McGowan says it was only 2.5 million for could be right, could be 2.5
could
million.
Be add-ons.
And the other ones are add-ons or step or Klarna payments. You get 2.5 million up front and you 500,000 every transfer window or something like that. That's how a lot of these deals actually work. You've got to think now that Ida's going to be on the plane to America within the next couple of days. That deal is going to get done. He's not in the Norwich squad. Even though the manager's saying that he's interested, he's made it quite clear to the Norwich board that he wants to come back to Celtic. And what we're just saying now is just two stubborn clubs just gone, I'm giving you this, no, we want that. Yeah. And eventually the twain shall meet.
Yeah, I think that's quite inevitable. It seems like O's made it clear where he wants to go. And as you say, I think it's just a case of now both of the clubs try to find an agreement and a figure that mutually both are happy with. I don't know what's the kind of most recent reports around about the, I don't know if you've got.
I reckon it was five. I heard a wee rumour on Saturday that Norwich had accepted 5 million plus add-ons.
Yeah. And for me, I think that's a good figure. Yeah, I think we've done well with that because it was chat that it's going to be inflated to maybe upwards of 7, 8, and as much as I still would pay it because we've spoke about the benefits of Ida and what he brings. It's a player we know. It's a player who's really enjoyed his time here, and we've talked about all his positives and what he can add to our front line. So I would have gone it, but it might have been a slightly inflated rate because of the fact that Norwich can hold us to that. But I think if we can get him for 5 plus add-ons, I think we've done well there. And you're right, the sooner we can get him in. Obviously, Bernardo's another one that's been a talking point for a while. It's one of those, though. Those two are ones that, we had them last season. They were already in the team. They weren't first-team starters, but we're all probably quite happy to get them tied up. But it just puts us back to where we were last season. We still need to strengthen 3 or 4 other positions. So, as much as, Kasper, Schmeichel, the backup goalie, Ida and Bernardo could all be done this week, and I'll be grateful for that, 4 signings in. But in terms of taking us forward from where we were as a squad at the end of last season, we're not much further forward. So there's still a lot of work to be done. There's a left back, a centre back, a centre mid, I think still. You've got the Matt O'Reilly ongoing debate, which again we can talk about because there's been a few updates on that, it seems. And a winger for me is still paramount. So there's a lot of work still to be done, which is why you'd have hoped we'd have been doing a bit more already. But there's still plenty of time. You just hope it starts to get a move on.
They think that they need to. I don't know if Rodgers was really prioritising a centre half this summer, even though the fans done it. I think he would have been looking at the centre halves that he had in the club, Narovski, Scales, Welsh. Right, we can argue all day about the merits of them. Lagerbielka's definitely no getting. He'll end up in Italy, either Sierra B or the bottom of Sierra A team there. I reckon Rodgers wanted to give Narovski a chance, and I think he's blew it 20 minutes into Queen's Park. And I think the need for a centre half has now jumped up his priority scale. And again, this is how I reckon that he'll still take phone calls for Scott McKenna's agent, because that need has now jumped up. But I didn't actually think that was a priority for Rodgers. When it's a priority for us, it was a priority for us, but having a look at it, I thought Rodgers was always going to give Narovski a chance. I really did.
Yeah, the surprising thing was he didn't give him a chance for a lot of last season, for whatever reason, whether it was injury or whether he was obviously satisfied with Scales' form. But towards the end of last season, Scales wasn't having his best time of it, and it worked. He stuck to his tried and trusted. But Nawrocki, it's a frustrating one because again we got another kind of Jozo Simunovic type injury-prone defender on our hands, which isn't ideal. As you say, Lagerbielka, Bielski. I think Stephen Welsh has shown again in pre-season why. Again, he's there as a backup. He'll always happily be a backup and come in when needed. And he fills the kind of Scottish quota. But is he someone you can trust and rely on to be a first team player? I don't think so. So we are short. We've got Carter Vickers. We've got Scales, and you've got a now injured Nawrocki. Given that we assume Lagerbielka will be away, and Kobayashi again, I don't think that's someone who's going to be around. No. I think you could be right. It could end up being Scott McKenna, but I do think a centre back is needed. I definitely do, because I want someone to come in that's going to be equal or as good as, or look someone at the level of Carter Vickers. Now I know that's easier said than done, but that's what we should be aiming at. And the guys we've currently got in the squad aren't that. So, of course, we need to go out there and try and find it. And I think that's what we need to do.
And us as a support, what we've got to remember, Azim, as well, there was a lot of question marks about Carter Vickers when he arrived at 24-year-old after 8 or 9 loan moves. Folk are going, oh, that's just a stopgap. That's just a stopgap as well. And he only arrived because I think Julian that got injured, or what was the centre half that got injured?
Julian was kind of frozen out by Ange. He got injured long term, and then it was the last day of the transfer window. I'm sure we got Carter Vickers, and again it was a lukewarm kind of reaction to it because of his past kind of just several loan experiences, and it wasn't one that everyone thought straight away, oh, this is a brilliant signing. So it just shows you sometimes people can come in and surprise us. But having watched Carter Vickers for the last 3 years and the quality he's got, you ideally want to partner him with someone, and him and Starfelt were a great partnership. I think they worked really well together. And I remember when Starfelt left, you're thinking, right, okay, we can still improve on Starfelt, but we haven't. We've almost we've had a downgrade, I would say, since. So yeah, I think it's, as you said, it might not have been a priority pre Nawrocki's injury, but definitely should be now.
And I feel sorry for Welsh. He just seems to bypass him in that, but he makes up the homegrown quota in the squad, and he's just signed a new deal on that. A left back is probably needed, even to push Greg Taylor, if not to replace Greg Taylor, to push him. And O goes and we bring in Ida. Rodgers says that he wants to run with 3 strikers. So we will be looking for another third striker. And possibly for me, that third striker will be a lone striker, I think, from maybe a younger lone striker, maybe one of the top leagues in Europe. I think I could see your third striker being that. I can't see us run with a signing somebody coming as a third striker unless they're a complete and utter veteran who is just there for a last payday.
Well, I think that comment regarding Vata was given the opportunity to be third striker would suggest that it's not a position we're going to go out and spend. And any chat of maybe Miovski being, having the 3 of them, I think we can put to bed based on that, because I know people say it's hard to please if you've got 3 strikers like that, but I've always been of the opinion that you're playing that many games, you're going to have injuries, you're going to change shape sometimes, you're going to play 2 up front, you're going to need 3 quality strikers throughout a season, I feel. But just the way we've been at, other than a very short spell where we had Edward, Griffiths, and Dembele, we never really had 3 main strikers in our squad. So I think you're right. If that position was going to be offered to Vata, and he's obviously away now, I don't see us spending a lot of money on another one. I think it will be someone, as you say, a youngster who's happy to be third choice, or someone that's already at the club, something along those lines. I remember I was thinking, why don't we go at Miovski and Ida? But I think upon hearing those comments, I don't see that happening.
I can't see it happening either. Uncle Nobby Steamboat, for the third striker, didn't say Vardy. I think he's well out of price range, wages range anyway. And Brown Warrior makes the point. Maeda is the third striker, Kev. He's already stated that he sees Dyson as a striker at Celtic. Push comes to shove, I think Liam will tell you that he always sees Dyson as a striker as well. But I think Rodgers likes to use him out in the beds, out on the wing. Tim Bardley's doing our job, Asim. He's doing our job for us. Apparently, Celtic are in talks with Royal Antwerp left winger Michael and Balawisha, who has scored 10 goals and 7 assists with 44 appearances last season. No surprise we're looking at a winger, eh?
Yeah, I've seen that literally just apparently coming on, so I didn't get a chance to.
I was trying to Google it, but
now the tweet that it came from, the source it came from, I don't know how reputable he is. All I can go by is it seemed like he had 100,000 followers, the journalist or whoever it was that tweeted it out. So I don't know. We don't know how reliable it is, but that's the kind of profile without knowing anything about him. But like you said, a guy who's got good numbers, assists and goals. By all accounts, seems like there's a bit of interest in him in a decent league. Exactly, that's the kind of these kind of leagues. Belgium, Holland, they're a good standard, and probably you could argue stronger than the Dutch league will be stronger, obviously, but even the Belgian league in terms of depth of the league is stronger than the SPFL. So that's the kind of, and I'm glad that we're looking at a winger, because I know some people said, "Oh, we've got plenty," but yeah, we've got plenty who have proven last season that they weren't really up to it consistently. Now, by all accounts, with a pre-season, with a bit more time under the manager and a bit more, chance to bed in, we might see a bit more from the likes of Palma and Yang and even Kuhn. Kuhn probably is the one I've got the most time for still. But Yang and Palma, they didn't seem like guys that are going to be consistent enough yet. And I don't know if they were even signed at the time to be really first choice wingers, and it just ended up happening that they ended up having to be, because obviously a Bada situation, Maeda having injuries, Jota leaving. I really want someone in there that's going to get fans off their seats. It's going to have that consistency again. I know wingers generally can be inconsistent, but you look at the drop off since Jota left, and when we had Abada and Maeda, and they were all firing in all cylinders. Last season just wasn't it. You look at it, I think a lot of our problems last season was a lot of why Kyogo wasn't as successful last season either, and as was because of our wing play. And I know Alan Morrison, he's a big advocate of that as well, and he said that on Friday's show that he feels the same. It just, you could see it, the input wasn't there, the delivery, the service wasn't there from our wingers. And Rodgers previously with Celtic in his first spell had a firing Scott Sinclair who was brilliant. You had Paddy Roberts and James Forrest at the peak of their powers, really fighting it out for a spot. Wingers were a big part of how good we were in that first spell. and then you compare that to last season, there's no wonder that we were struggling. So I think he'll make that a priority as well. And if we're getting linked with some now, that's encouraging. So, I don't know much about the player, but obviously just because it came in pretty soon before we came on. So
before we came on air, So Kingston Boy says the guy who's linked us with the winger for Antwerp was correct with the O info.
Right. Okay. Well, that's encouraging.
So that is quite an encouraging line. I like wingers that get me off our seats, and I think that's what Rodgers does. His setup for me is awfully structured, but he likes his wingers to be individual, to create stuff. He likes his wingers to go and take on a man, go and cut inside, go and commit the fullback, go and create that space for yourself. And I think last season we really, really struggled at that.
Yeah.
I spoke about it on Friday at the time at Livingston when Kuhn got to the byline and jigged in about you should be doing that more often for us. You've actually set that that guy a dummy there. You didn't do that enough for us. You should be doing that more. But it's no surprise to me that he's looking at a winger as well.
There's a comment that I can see from Stephen Ray saying, why are we mentioning Palma in the same kind of breath as Yang? Now, I agree, Palma's numbers are 10 times better than Yang's because, and Palma started the season pretty well for us, but I think you've seen his lack of consistency and maybe some attitude issues. But again, we can all speculate, but, that's what seemed to be the frustration with a lot of fans with Palma. Some of the showboating at times, at the wrong times, his attitude at the 2 penalty misses. Look, these things happen. We spoke not long ago, and this is Acsom to Bobby Pettit, and Bobby Pettit kind of alluded to the fact that for wingers, sometimes it's sliding doors moments. Bobby Pettit didn't have a great first season, and then the second season things just aligned for him, and he was on the verge of a Dutch call up and stuff like that. So he was quick to say that we can't rule out some of these wingers who we can't. But at the same time, we're all football fans. We've watched the game. We're all give our opinions, and you can only go by what you see. And from what we've seen of Palma, you just worry that has he got that discipline, has he got that consistency and that real desire to be to week in, week out, really make game-changing moments. And he had bits of quality. Some of his goals, you could make a highlights reel of Palma last season, and you'd think, wow, what a season. But when you watch him week in, week out, there was a lot of frustration in there. Again, I'm willing to give him time, but I just think in order to give these guys time, we need someone in that's ready-made. We need players that are going to come in and you're going to get a tune out of them because they've played at a decent level already. They're experienced. And I think a lot of the frustration last year is we bought a lot of these projects or unknown players and we didn't balance it out with guys that had played at a good level and played a lot of games at a good level. And I think you bring in Schmeichel, that's a good start, but you want a few more of that ilk. And again, that's where you're maybe right about the likes of McKenna. At least we know that he's proven and he can do that. But if you're looking at the more attacking players and midfielders and wingers, that's the kind of profile of players that we need now. Players that have played, like you say, in Belgium, had a really good season and shown that they can make telling contributions. And hopefully we'll see more links like that. But yeah, I'm not ruling out Palm and Cole, but we did see a lot of games from these guys last season, and more often than not, we were left, flattered to deceive.
For our audio listeners, those who are out walking the dog, listen to us later on, Stephen Ray's comment actually says, why are you mentioning Yang along with Palma? Palma got over 20 goal contributions, Yang got 4. Palma almost matched Abada and Jota despite playing over 800 minutes less. I think the disappointment in Palma is when you see the stats, he'd done it in such a short period of time. If that had continued, we'd be talking about a guy in the same level as Jota. But it didn't happen for him. He dropped off a cliff. And that is the worry that a lot of the Celtic fans have. But I completely get where Stephen's coming from. Talking about guys having breakout seasons, Matt O'Reilly had a breakout season last season. And now he's getting linked this morning. Total Sport, for all of us who grew up watching James Richardson, I've linked him with Juventus. Atletico Madrid again were linked over the weekend. Atalanta have possibly fired the starting gun of the bidding with a £16 million bid and were told to go away and come back when they want more than his left eyebrow. we're not going to hold on to Mr. O'Reilly, and there's some big names coming in, and a lot of Celtic fans are getting a bit giddy with the fee that we might actually be able to get for Matt O'Reilly. It's good for us that there's teams like Juventus and Atletico Madrid seemingly interested in our players.
And that's the level I think he should be looking at. I know there's been chat of Leicester and Southampton and some of the English teams, but he's better than that. He's better than that. The benefit of having those kind of teams involved is, again, it drives the fee up, because we know the ridiculous amounts of money in English football that the likes of Leicester could probably outbid Juventus. That's the world we're living in. But in terms of Matt O'Reilly, I would be frustrated for him, and that if he went to a Leicester, because I think those days of Van Dijk, Viljami, they're all going to the Southamptons before they get their next big move. I think O'Reilly can skip that step. I think he's more than good enough, and as you've mentioned, Atalanta, Europa League winners. You've got Juventus, Inter Milan, Atletico Madrid, the kind of clubs that are being linked with him. That's where I think he can play it. I think he's more than good enough. It's a shame he didn't make the Danish squad. I think they could have done with someone like him in there. That might have inflated his interest in even more. But he's a brilliant player. You're right. I don't think we'll hold on to him, but I don't think we'll get a deal that we're not happy with. I don't think we're looking like if they put in a bid for 16 million. You're saying Atlanta, it's going to need to be near double that for us to part way with Matt O'Reilly. I think this is going to have to break our record of 25 million. And if you've got those kind of clubs in the mix, then I would imagine we can drum that kind of interest in him. By all accounts, he's not a player that's going to sit and cause issues. A la Dembele back in Rodgers' third season.
No, not at all.
Matt O'Reilly he's not cut from that same cloth. He seems like he's a player who'll bide his time, make sure it's the right move for him, and be a consummate professional in everything he does. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's on that trip to America, unless something happens very quickly. But I'm not worried about that. I think we're all prepared that he's going to go, and as long as we can then invest that wisely, we'll be happy, because I don't begrudge him a move to one of those big clubs. I just hope it isn't to a Leicester or a Southampton.
What I'll say is Matt O'Reilly will start the first game of the season for us, because the clubs that you're getting linked with, even the English clubs, as you say, I think the English club would be perfect suited to go to is Brighton. I think Brighton play a certain style of football, and even though they've got a new young manager, Matt O'Reilly is the profile of player that they actually sign. And I can't see him going to a Leicester. I don't think Steve Cooper plays the football that Matt O'Reilly would like. Brentford maybe, but they've got quite a good. I think the Brentford link is just because he's Danish, and Brentford have got the Danish manager as well. And Southampton is just probably a lazy link because we always sell players to Southampton. That's the way it goes. I think once Celtic accept a bid for somebody, you'll see who's really, really interested in O'Reilly. Because I think there's teams that will be sitting back just now looking at other options that O'Reilly. And if Celtic accept, for example, 25, 30 million for one club, then clubs will go, right, we'll go in for him now. We'll not start a bidding war, but we'll try and get him to our club. And I think that's how I think he'll go to America and he'll start the season with us. Because these clubs will not do that level of business till later on in the window. That's how I think that we've got. There's no danger of us losing them soon, just because of the money that's going to be involved and the teams that are going to be involved.
Yeah, I don't think there's a rush, and a lot of these kind of big European sides and even the English sides, their seasons don't start until a wee bit after hours, or a week or two after hours. So you're right. I don't think there's a rush from their end. I think a lot of clubs are probably just sitting, waiting to see what else is happening. Now that the Euros are finished, as you mentioned earlier, there'll be a lot more movement going around, and I think we'll start seeing a lot more proper concrete links as to who's seriously serious about bringing Matt O'Reilly to their club. It wouldn't surprise me if he's here in the first week of the season either. And from our perspective, though, I wouldn't want to be going into that first week of the season having not really done a lot more business than we have now. You know, I've seen some people say that they wouldn't be panicking. It's not a panic station. It's not like we've got Champions League qualifiers, but I just think it sets the wrong tone. If you've not got your main priority positions in place prior to that flag day, it just sets the wrong tone for me because it's a lingering frustration then. Why have we still got no left back in? Why have we still not got this guy in? I just think it sets a good precedent. It sets the tone for fans to be excited if we start moving things along quickly, whether that's this week or just in time for the 4th of August, so that you've got a few more faces in the building and fans can start relaxing a wee bit that, you know, we know what we're doing. Because the longer it goes on and you're looking at it and then, you know, say Greg Taylor has a good start to the season, you know, we'd love for it to happen. But again, people will be like, oh, yeah, Greg Taylor's doing well. Yeah, we'll get another left back. But we need to remember what it was like last season. And we've been crying out, not just last season, we've been saying it for 2 and 3 seasons. We need an upgrade on Greg Taylor. And I like Greg Taylor. I really do. I think he's a good player and I think he's been a good servant for Celtic. But we need someone that's not only pushing him, but that's going to be better than him. You know, that's going to have. We need more athleticism in our team. We need more physicality. We still lack that kind of, and that's why I'm excited to see more of Bosun Lawwell, because I think he fits the profile of the kind of player I want to see us having that midfield now. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to watching us in these next couple of pre-season games because obviously the level of opposition ramps up a bit now, when it being DC and then the 2 Premiership clubs. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it and seeing if these kind of guys get more game time to see what they can do.
I'm going to ask you a question then. See with Lawwell, right? Say we bring in Bernardo and sell O'Reilly. Do you bring in another midfielder then, or do you just promote the big fella into the squad?
No, I don't. I think we still aim to bring. Look, you can never be short of too many quality players. If you're selling arguably your best player for 30 odd million to one of the top clubs in Europe, that's a big gap that you're leaving behind. Bosun Lawwell, for all that he could he could grow into being a great player. He's not a replacement for him, and Bernardo isn't either. He's not the same type of player. So for me, you look at that midfield, and then you've got the likes of Odin Holm, which you just don't know how much he's going to feature. Right, Iwata, for me, I don't know again if he's going to be the answer. Right, so you've got McGregor in there, you've got maybe Bernardo, Hatate. You know, there's been links of him, but that seems to have gone quiet. So, you know, I would still be looking for us to be signing a real profile midfielder if Matt O'Reilly goes. But I want to see Lawwell given a chance, whether it's in these next few pre-season games. Let's see if he can hold his own in that kind of company. And then maybe feature in and around the squad or get him on loan to another club in the SPFL. But I just like that profile of player. Whether he's the one, I don't know. But by all accounts, when I've seen clips of him for Fleetwood, albeit a slightly lower level last season, he looks like someone who can add something that we don't currently have in our team.
Definitely. Stephen Ray.
What do you think about Bernardo? Do you think if we get Bernardo in, that's a Matt O'Reilly replacement? Because he's not that kind of player. He's a good player, and I think he'd be a good signing, but he's not a replacement for Matt O'Reilly.
He's not a replacement for Matt O'Reilly, no, but then I find it quite, you can't replace players like for like. I think Hatate has got the ability to break down defences for the midfield. I think Matt O'Reilly had a breakout season last season, and Rodgers maybe will only be looking to replace Matt O'Reilly as such. He'll be looking to improve the wingers, to create more than trying to sign like for like with Matt O'Reilly. I think if Rodgers is looking for anything, he's probably looking for somebody who's a bit more of a destroyer, so he can maybe go to a 2 and go back to the 4-2-3-1 and have somebody sitting alongside Callum McGregor, who is an out and out beast, a defensive midfielder, for the want of a better word. I don't think if O'Reilly leaves, I don't think he'll try to replace him. He'll look to get more change out his wingers.
The thing is, Kev, for the amount of money we've currently got in the bank and that we're going to get from the likes of that, you could really go out there and buy 4 or 5 players for a decent amount of money. And I know money is not the be all and end all. We've seen that money doesn't automatically mean they're going to be a great player. But again, we spoke about it all summer and all last season. Profile of player, the balance of experienced player playing at a good level, in Europe. We could go out there and get 4 or 5 of those, whether it's £5-6 million each, use that Matt O'Reilly money and really strengthen the whole spine of the squad and make us look like a solid unit, and we have backup options for each position, but players fighting and really, really enhancing the overall quality, whether that's another left back, a centre mid, and a winger, and it'll make such a difference. And that's what we really all hope that we're going to see this summer.
Didn't get me wrong. Every successful football club must churn players. They must constantly improve. You can't allow guys to get stale. And I says at the end of I says at the end of last season, this feels like the end of a cycle for some of these players who have done their bit and now we need to upgrade. I mean, everybody's up for an upgrade. I mean, anybody can't be comfortable going, oh, by the way, I'm not going to get replaced here. And that's the way it should be if you want to believe that if you want to believe that you're a top football club, Azim. And this is where us saying we need to improve on Greg Taylor is no a slight on Greg Taylor. If the option came up to improve on Callum McGregor, we've got to take it. Just because it's not Callum McGregor, if that opportunity presents itself, we take it. And that's something that we really good. But sometimes that's easier said than done. And that's why I didn't think centre half was a priority for Rodgers, because he had numbers there. But now Narowski being injury prone might actually change that. That's the hour done. I'm going to bring in Stephen Ray's comment. Where is it? There he is. He's put his cards on the table about Palmer. Cards on the table. Palmer will get 15 goals and 15 assists next season. If he gets that, then this point next season we'll be talking about how long we can actually hold on. Now that's where and I hope you're right, Stephen. I really do. I really do hope you're right. I do think one of the wingers will have a breakout season. One of them that are already there will have a breakout season. I didn't believe it's going to be Yang, because I think if we bring in another winger, then I think we could get our money back on Yang now. I think that's one of the reasons why. And I'm going to leave the last comment to the Urban Coolshay. Tall, athletic, mid-20s and Fenian. Any new player must meet 3 out of these 4 standards. I didn't think I can beat that comment today. No. Thanks very much for joining me on a Monday.
No problem.
Thanks everybody for joining us in the comments. And remember, didn't be bams to each other. See you later.
See you later.